Thank you very much, Linda. السلام عليكم يا جماعة.
عليكم السلام.
هو في المرتين اللي قبل كده اللي كنت هنا فيهم ألقيت تجارب ليا، تجارب شعرية فصيحة يعني. المرة دي هتكون مختلفة شوية. هقول تجربة قصصية، تجربة سردية. I will read a short story and it will be in English. اسمها بالعربي أولي أجنحة. In English, wings. Well, I am Mahmoud Samir Ayad, 33 years old. I got my master's degree in gene therapy 3 years ago. And this is strange in itself, because I originally specialized in surgery, you know. But some fate destined my late friend, Dr. Yasser, to suggest to me this subject in particular for my master's degree. And destined my late professor, Dr. Mohamed Salem to be enthusiastic about it. What I achieved was not a real thesis. It was rather a scientific essay concocted from a medley of trusted references, just like every other thesis submitted for the master's degree in my alma mater. The same fate, and maybe another one, destined me to get involved in scientific research despite my having resigned from the Academy of Scientific Research 5 years before I got my MSc. Truly, I don't know to whom do I write these lines, but I write them nonetheless. Since what happened, nothing repels those episodes of shuddering away from me but writing. In the past few days, I wrote a number of poems greater than all what I had written my whole life. The shudder gets hold of me whenever I stop writing. And today, I decided to tell what happened. And maybe I'm just jotting it down without any hope that somebody may read it. And is there anybody still? The plan was foggy since the first day I started my MSc. Foggy but present, nebular but there. My friend Wael was telling me about his married life about to collapse, with its sequence of events happening to a backdrop of cricket sounds. You know crickets? Sarrar al-Layl. That being, supposed to exist in green fields, was reportedly there in Wael's bedroom, a witness or not to the intimate relationship with his wife, her rock-hard obstinacy, and their frequent quarrels. I didn't know anything about that being at the time, but I used to think the cricket and the cockroach were one and the same. I decided to look for it on the internet. Should I say, I wish I could never found it, or I wish it never broke through Wael's life so parasitically, or I wish I had never known Wael from the start. His photos, I mean the cricket, his photos were driving me to get away from people. His broad, flat body was enough for me to despise the extremely thin Wael. His many tiny legs caused me to resent every love story in which I was involved with a plump girl. And finally, his pair of wings convinced me that humanity is no good. More than a century ago, Amos Dolbear discovered his weird law that describes the relationship between temperature and the number of times the cricket claps his wings a minute. In the beginning, Amos' research was restricted to one kind of crickets living in snow trees in the United States of America. The only photo that I found for Amos was indeed another riddle, gray-haired, with the eyes of a dead man, and the face of an isosceles triangle, you know, whose base is at his head, and head at his chin. And he had a goatee that was brought up among books. A fully catastrophic face. Gradually, the cricket replaced Wa'il as my intimate friend, and Amos became my idol. I toiled indeed to achieve my thesis in a record time. At the discussion, I dyed my hair in gaudy whites and remembered well not to invite anybody. The supervisors were distraught with the gloomy atmosphere that I spread in the discussion hall. They criticized what I've done with my hair and my gaudy, but bestowed excellency with honors on my thesis. The next day, I withdrew my bank deposit to the last piastre and began furnishing my private laboratory within my new apartment in the 6th of October city. I bought all the glassware, chemicals, and utensils that I may need and took a train to my father's home village in the countryside to hunt as many crickets as I may. Everybody there was astonished at what I was busy doing, and it was impossible to explain to them what I'm intending to do. I just told them that I need crickets badly for my researches in genetics. I saved for the crickets some tree leaves, grains, and variable provisions of organic materials in the safe nest that I bought especially for them. Here, the crickets were safe from their natural enemy, namely the parasitoid fly Ormia ocratia. Definitely, I saved the male crickets from the larvae of their enemy being put upon their bodies to penetrate them, grow inside them, and finally kill them while coming back to life. What matters is that I returned home with hundreds of male and female crickets. Colors were green, gray, black, and others. But I was totally convinced, I was totally convenient with my perception of them as completely white. These are angels. Celebrating this step, I stood in the middle of my lab apartment and decided to give a lecture to the audience already there. I mean the glassware, equipment, the nest full of crickets, and the other empty nests that I bought in anticipation of what is going to be. Of course, the lecture was about crickets. I explained to the audience how evolution led to the emergence of its characteristic sound only in the male crickets. The male was clapping the top of one wing to the bottom of the other so that the serration of the first hits the comb of the second and chirping occurs. He does this to attract females as a kind of flirtation and to repel other males, and after a successful mating, and threateningly when he feels through his antennae the presence of other males in the neighborhood. It was a magnificent lecture, and it was evident that the audience was so happy about it. I mean, the crickets chirped so loudly despite the fact that it was still noon. Well, I had to face certain challenges. First of all, this equation. This is the equation, can you see it? Tc equals 10 plus n minus 40 over 7, where Tc is the Celsius centigrade temperature of the surrounding environment, and n is the number of times the cricket chirps a minute. Firstly, I had to break this dependence so that n becomes independent of Tc. Again, the equation is here. Can you see it? Well, researchers before me already succeeded in isolating other factors controlling the number of chirps, among them the age of the organism and the degree to which mating was successful. A gene sequence on chromosome number 7 is responsible for the cricket's neuromuscular behavior. I was totally bent upon this sequence, that it devoured most of the 3 years following that part of my project. I made the nitrogenous bases play the hopscotch upon the sugar phosphate backbone, and tried all the combinations and permutations of amino acids to build the super protein molecules that I dreamt of. And I built them. Crickets became able to chirp 100 times a minute instead of 62 at 0 centigrade Celsius. Then it chirped 1,000. Then 10,000 chirps a minute. Then, I don't know, but it chirped so many times before that thing happened. Anyway, I had to reconstitute the direct proportionality inherent in the equation. Again, the equation. This is the equation. I had to reconstitute the direct proportionality inherent in it. This seemed impossible to me as I broke it on the molecular level. I decided to leave this problem to the end and concentrated on the problem of the parasitoid fly Ormealcratia. I wondered at how almighty I became, as 2 days were sufficient for the new genes to be adequately resistant to the larvae of the devil fly. Crickets, Sarrar al-Layl, crickets became so impenetrable to the larvae that the devil would commit suicide. In 2 days before the earthquake, 2 days before what happened, I bought a heavy metal cabin. I managed to buy a specially designed heavy metal cabin, the size of one man, with one side of it transparent, allowing whomsoever outside it to see its inside, and vice versa. This was only 1 week ago. Only 1 week ago, people were coming and going in the streets, lanes, houses, and deserts. Animals were going to whatever they were going to in the forests and cages. Trees were... Everything was... But I looked through the transparent sides at the cricket nests, pressed the control button, and their doors were open. For 3 cents of wa'in, even for 4. For 3 cents of Yasser, even for 4. For 3 cents of Dr. Imad, even for 4. And for 3 cents of people and animals, even for 4. The nest doors were open, and the crickets were free in hundreds of thousands. Crickets were free in hundreds of thousands, chirping. The equation was back to work, and I don't know how, but some madness possessed the symbols T, C, and N, and they hugged each other like the letters in no. In a fraction of a second, the temperature reached 100,000 degrees Celsius, and 10. The sound was terrifying. Crickets were chirping. No, crickets were glorifying. Everything melted down, and then crickets melted down. Then it returned glacial as it had been, glacial. The story is over, but the notebook is not. I don't know what to write now. I don't know. The cold will kill me. Thank you.